Good morning, and welcome to the Facebook of page of Van Hooser and Steele Funeral Home. And this morning we have a very, very special guest. We're all excited. We have today our guest, the mayor of Tuscaloosa, Mayor Walt Maddox, and we welcome you to the Van Hooser and Steele Funeral Home Facebook page, Mayor Maddox.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored, Mr. Steele, to be joined with you.
Well, thanks for being here. And on a little bit of the facetious side, the last time I saw you about a week ago, I had hair, but I had my hair shaved off a couple of days ago. But we are honored that you're here, and we're here to discuss a very, very important issue. And this issue is facing the world, the nation, our state, and our city. And before we get started, how many terms, Mayor, have you served Tuscaloosa?
Well, I'm in my fourth term. It's hard to believe that. I've been mayor since 2005, and I plan on running again. And so I just feel, I don't wake up and go to work, Mr. Steele. I wake up and feel like I'm on a mission. I was born and raised here, graduated from Central High School. I played football at UAB, earned my undergrad and master's degree there. But for the vast majority of my life, Tuscaloosa is home. My parents live in the city. Of course, obviously, I live in the city. So everything that I love and cherish is right here in Tuscaloosa.
Well, we're so appreciative to have you here in Tuscaloosa. And before we really get started on the main issue, I just want to express to you the great leadership that you showed during the tornado. When the tornado came through, you were in charge, you took control, and I just want to thank you for taking that leadership.
Thank you. I'm surrounded by great people, a great community, so I was just part of an amazing team. But it certainly was a defining moment for our city, and it gives me great strength to know any challenge that we face, we can always go back and look at the tornado and know that we can make it.
And I'm glad to hear you say that. Any challenge that we face, we can come together and we can make it. And today we are faced with the pandemic, the challenge of the COVID-19. And when you look at Tuscaloosa, and as it relates to COVID-19, what are your thoughts about COVID-19?
Well, it's serious. The fact is that I'm talking to you today from home. My dad tested positive for COVID-19 2 days ago. I haven't seen my dad since for about 10 days. So an abundance of caution, I'm not going into work, although I've tested negative myself and my family's tested negative. And my mom's awaiting her test. So, we have this personal connection to it. And many people like me are now having family members, friends who are testing positive. It's an insidious virus that spreads very easily. And fortunately, we took early action in Tuscaloosa, which has given us the ability to keep our hospital capacity where we can treat people. But we're still in a danger zone, and we all have to be very, very careful in the weeks, months, and I hate to say this, Mr. Steele, maybe even years ahead.
Yes, I think we have been changed for a long time permanently. And we wish the best for your dad and the rest of your family. We wish the very best for them. You, in that statement, you said you're taking it very seriously. So as I'm traveling around the city and going different places using social distance, I find that so many people lackadaisical. They're not taking it serious. And I think this is a great mistake, and it could be a grave mistake. What do you think about that?
I think you're dead on. And what we're seeing this week is the numbers or the demographic that's being most impacted is 18 to 23-year-olds. And my daughter's age group, in fact, she's had a friend, so she's had to been tested on 2 occasions, who has tested positive. And so my daughter is 17. So I think we're seeing that demographic now. And what scares me about that is the mobility of that demographic. Let's take my daughter who has tested negative, but let's say she was asymptomatic. If she goes to see my parents or sees me and my family or whoever it may be, you can become a spreader, a super spreader of the virus and not even know it. I'm still very concerned. Now, fortunately, we have been working with DCH. We have a great medical surge plan in place, but we're still not out of the woods. And to say it's a grave mistake is absolutely correct. We have had 23 people in our county pass away because of COVID-19, and people who want to compare this to the flu, it's apples to oranges. The COVID-19 in the United States has killed more people in 3 months than the flu normally does in over a year. This is a very serious virus, and we need to take it seriously. And I want to echo what you say. I go into places and I'm wearing my mask and I'm trying to social distance, and I see a lot of people who are not. They're not only putting their lives at risk, they're putting the lives of others at risk. And we need to continue to take care of each other to get through this.
Well, you said an important thing, asymptomatic, and we really don't know that much about the virus and the mutating status of the virus, but the virus has been on Earth for millions of years, but it somehow jumped species. Mm-hmm. And when you mention asymptomatic, we're getting new reports almost every day. So I heard, I think yesterday or the day before, they were saying that a person asymptomatic may pass it on. And now they're coming back and saying a person asymptomatic may not. So that's a 50-50 chance that you're taking there. So the virus is constantly changing.
And I don't mean to interrupt you, Mr. Steele, but I've heard even Dr. Fauci say that the virus dictates the timeline and the outcomes. And it may be years before we truly understand the pathological nature of this virus. But what we do know is that we've had over 100,000 people in our country die from it. And it's the first time I'm 47 years old, and it's the first time in my lifetime I've ever seen medical tents go on Central Park because they can't treat everyone. That in and of itself shows you how serious this can be. And in Alabama, we continue to see rapid increases. I think we've had our 2 highest days, if I'm not mistaken. And in Tuscaloosa yesterday, we crossed over 1,000 cases. We're at 1,070 before we came on the air, and more than 500 of those are active. So we need to be very careful, and we're seeing this community spread now with our younger people, and they will have a higher ability to spread it. Our spread has been mainly 50 and older and in institutional settings. If we get into community spread, we start to face what Mayor Reed is facing down in Montgomery, and none of us want to be in that position.
Right now, I just been informed we had another death today in Tuscaloosa. Recently someone just passed today, is my understanding. Where are the numbers right now? You just gave some of the numbers. But do you feel that the hospital, do they have enough equipment and respirators to intubate the people? And do we have enough space in the ICU to treat all of these patients?
I feel pretty confident in that. I mean, certainly if there was just a rapid progression, I don't know if anything would be enough. But we've been working with DCH since the beginning of March. The city has partnered with them on a medical surge plan. They've been able to secure extra respirators and ventilators. And by the way, ventilators now are almost becoming a treatment of last resort. Over the last few months, the medical profession has discovered better ways to treat COVID. And I think that's why you're seeing some of the death rates begin to levelize, but one death's too many. So I do feel confident in that. But we can't, this is, and again, anybody tells you they know what's going to happen, they're just not being honest. It's like me trying to tell you what the weather's going to be like 50 days from now. Only the Lord himself knows that. So I think what we've got to avoid is a massive amount of community spread, because you're going to have your institutional spreads. That's going to happen. But we've got to be able to contain that so DCH keeps its capacity. The other thing I would add, Mr. Steele, is we have an Achilles heel, and that is DCH serves 11 counties around our state, around our Tuscaloosa County. They come into our basin, so to speak, and we don't have any ability to really control that. I think the number of deaths total at DCH have been 42, 43. Half of that's been Tuscaloosa County, but the others are from those counties. And something I talked about when I ran for governor in 2018 is the lack of Medicaid expansion in those counties, meaning that the rural hospital system either doesn't exist or isn't strong enough to handle the COVID crisis. And so Tuscaloosa is not only impacted by our county, we're impacted what happens in 11 other counties that surround us.
Okay, that was one of my questions, and I think you answered that very well. Right now, America and state of Alabama, the city of Tuscaloosa, we are reopening. So, do you think we open too soon? Should we have waited? What's your opinion on that?
I think we were at the point where we literally had to reopen. I think for about 6 or 7 weeks, and the city took action earlier than most, including the state. But after about 7 weeks, you began to see the negative side and the indirect consequences. People were not going in to get their treatments that they needed, whether it was dialysis or other types of surgeries that were needed or procedures that were needed. So you were beginning to have issues on that end. Domestic violence went up 56%. Crime started to escalate. So I think we reached a point where you weighed everything. You really had to move towards reopening in measured ways, and that's what we tried to do. At the same time, though, people have to take responsibility, because what we did in that 7 weeks was buy time to get our hospital system ready, to get the ventilators, to have a medical surge plan, to get the PPE. But people still have to continue to do the smart things. If we'll practice social distancing, wear a mask when all possible, avoid that type of contact, and use common sense, we will reduce the spread rate, and we will take care of our fellow brothers and sisters throughout our city.
Okay, we know we should be taking extra precaution. So what's the standard in Tuscaloosa now for public gatherings and public restrictions? We've had several peaceful demonstrations, and I should commend everybody for demonstrating peacefully. So what is the rule of thumb now for public gatherings, even at church or funerals or etc.?
Well, the rule of thumb right now, and I would encourage everyone with specific questions to go to Tuscaloosa/reopen, and you can Tuscaloosa.com/reopen, and you can get the specifics. But mainly half capacity for the most part is the rule of thumb, where you can create the social distancing that is necessary. That's going to be your basic standard. Now, that doesn't apply to everything. Again, go find the specifics. But that should be the standard, and we all just have to be really careful. Tonight, we've got Central High School's graduation. Tomorrow morning, we got Paul Bryant, and then tomorrow night, we have Northridge High School. The city has worked very hard with the city schools to keep people spread out, to keep people safe. We do those things, we'll mitigate the spread. And I do want to commend, I know we're here talking about COVID, but following the murder of George Floyd, there was naturally people wanted to get out and voice their anger and displeasure and vent their frustrations. And Tuscaloosa did it in such an honorable way. We didn't have any of the issues that we saw in some places. It made me proud to be part of this community. This community never fails. And Mr. Still, I appreciate you and your brother Charles for what they did. It's not easy, but again, it gets back to what we talked about earlier with the tornado or COVID. This community can always come together, even sometimes when we disagree. We can listen, we can learn, and we can come together to try to make a difference.
It's amazing you mentioned graduation, because my granddaughter is graduating today from Central High this evening, and the tickets are limited to 7 tickets per family. It would be at the amphitheater, and social distance will be enforced there. So I'm saying that to say COVID has changed the life in the world, not only in America and Alabama and Tuscaloosa, but it has changed the life in the world forever. What's your opinion on that?
I think it has, and I don't think any of us know what that's going to mean in the future. I know what you do for families has probably changed dramatically. How the city, in terms of economy, we're going to have to reduce our budget by 15 million for this fiscal year and then 15 million next year because people are shopping different. And for example, most people that shop online, the city never receives the sales taxes from that. So it's changed a lot, and we're all going to have to adapt and move to it. But it's the new normal, and it's again, if I had that crystal ball, which they issued it with the office, I could tell you what I think will happen. But here's my gut sense, and I could be wrong, but I read an article. I can't remember what publication it came from, but the author basically said that the next year would be what he called a hammer and dance. And what he meant by that is we'll go through these peaks where we'll get high numbers of cases, high number of hospitalizations, and then we'll shut down for a little bit, then we'll open back up. So we'll hammer down, then we'll open up. We'll hammer down and open up. I suspect that's going to be the modus operandi for the next 6 to 12 months until there's a vaccine or an effective treatment.
Okay, and I guess this is like a three-part question here. Have we lost any businesses due to the COVID on the west side of Tuscaloosa? What is the economic impact that it has had on the city of Tuscaloosa?
Yes, you have lost businesses, but fortunately, the city council, by a vote of 5-2, approved Restart Tuscaloosa. And we're going to be investing $1 million into small businesses, basically 50 and below, over the next month to get an infusion of cash that we hope can keep a lot of our businesses moving forward. The economic impact on the city has just been devastating. I mean, we're losing about $500,000 a week at the city of Tuscaloosa in tax revenues. And for a $235 million entity, that's devastating because our demand for services haven't changed, but the amount of revenues that pay for those services has certainly been altered. And for Tuscaloosa, it wasn't only the shutdown, is that when we had to close between the University of Alabama, Stillman, and Shelton State, nearly 30,000 people left the city of Tuscaloosa. That's $500 million of economic impact that walked out the door. You don't replace that easy, and probably only us and Auburn and Gulf Shores and Orange Beach experience the dynamic of not having that added benefit of some sort of tourism element. And Tuscaloosa certainly was impacted by that. And I'm hopeful that football season happens. Certainly, I hope the university returns, and I hope football season happens, because if that doesn't, we go from a great recession, so to speak, to a great depression pretty quickly.
Since you brought up football, what's your concern, or what's your thoughts on football players being positive and coming to play football?
Well, being a former player myself, I don't think, as much as I love football, we should jeopardize the safety of the players under any circumstances. Life is more important than any game. And I hope, and I would think that places like UA and others are going to take very good care of their players and not jeopardize them. COVID is serious, and it is, for those that want to kind of try to diminish its impact, I think they're making a mistake at their own risk. My hope is, though, it appears that the SEC and other conferences around the country are doing everything they can to protect their student athletes. I know Greg Byrne would at the UA, and certainly Coach Saban would, but I think we have to be careful. I think the other impact to measure is what will stadiums look like, whether it's high school football or college football. Will there be anybody in the stadium? Or if they are, do they have to maintain 6 foot of distance? There are a lot of questions to work out over the next 2 months.
To this point, I'm quite sure you've been in correspondence with the Board of Education. So have you heard of any plans of how the schools would be reopened, or would there be, I know there would be drastic changes, but have you heard of any of those type of changes that will take place when school reopen?
Well, my last conversation is they still plan an opening later in August, so they're moving back the date to give it time. They hope to have it in person, but they're certainly putting in place the virtual options. And I think we all, again, it's not that I know something, that someone else doesn't. I just see the fact that this virus, at least, is not. It was supposed to go down in summer, Normally, viruses don't fare well in heat and humidity, and it hasn't thus far. Now, it doesn't say that maybe it doesn't in the next several weeks, but if we're still rolling out cases that we're growing at 20, 25, 30% a week, and then we get into late August, and then we start September, which is flu season. I have my doubts, and I say that as a parent and as a mayor. I have my doubts, but maybe just maybe there's an effective treatment or a vaccine by that time. I do believe we'll have the medical capacity, though, to deal with it, and that's the most important thing. That's why we took such steps early, was to protect DCH so that it could serve people, not only who had coronavirus, but if you had a heart attack or you had a stroke or you were in a car wreck or whatever it may be, that there was a bed for you and doctors and nurses available to treat you.
We're about to wrap up, Mr. Mayor, but going to the institutionalized facilities like the jails, have any extra efforts been taken there, or how are those inmates socially distanced?
Well, the sheriff's office has been in charge of that. The city doesn't operate Metro Jail. The sheriff's office does, so they would have to get in specifics. But it's my understanding they're doing everything that they are required to do under their mandates. I can't go, frankly, I couldn't tell you specifics, but I've asked our team to make certain that if the Tuscaloosa County Sheriff's Office needs any resources from the city, we will certainly supply it. I will say that our fire and rescue EMS teams have been coordinating with nursing homes, the Alabama Department of Mental Health, so we can do everything we can to limit the amount of institutional spread, because what we're seeing is once it gets into a nursing home setting, it can absolutely grow rapidly. In fact, in one of our nursing home facilities, it was a young person, when I say young, in their early 20s, who was just starting work, was asymptomatic, but spread it to several people. They, again, not on purpose, certainly it was by accident, but just one case like that in a setting, whether it's a geriatric unit or whether it's a nursing home, it's hard to practice social distancing. And so that's why that spread can happen rapidly. And the same obviously holds true for Metro Jail.
Okay. Lastly, what would you like to tell Tuscaloosa? Anything that I have not asked you? Is there anything you would like to say to the citizens of Tuscaloosa? Feel free to do so at this time.
Well, two parts. Number one is that I am honored to serve our city, and I've never been more excited to be your mayor. When we passed Elevate a year ago, we had some amazing opportunities before us. We now have universal pre-K. We're funding summer learning academies. And here's something that I'm really proud of, Mr. Steele, is that the city of Tuscaloosa through Elevate is paying for up to 6 hours of tuition, fees, and books for every rising senior in the Tuscaloosa City schools to either go to Stillman, Shelton State, or the University of Alabama. 6 hours of free college, and 70+% of our rising seniors within the city schools are taking advantage. In fact, 92% of those at Central High School are going to get a head start either on college or their career thanks to this program. That's just one of the many things we're doing in the city. And the second part I would say is we have challenges. There's no doubt COVID and COVID's impact on the budget. And certainly even in the aftermath of George Floyd's murder, we all know we must do more and be more. And we are going to do that. And I look forward with my budget in late August of having some additional recommendations. So we as the city and TPD, we can grow closer to the community, the people who pay our salaries. And I look forward to that as well. And Mr. Steele, I want to thank you. We're just a couple of days removed from the anniversary of Bloody Tuesday. I think the 56th anniversary of Bloody Tuesday. You're a hero. Your family's a hero. Tuscaloosa is a better place because you call our community home. Thank you for what you've done. And if I can be 10% as good as you, I know I've had a very good life, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, and I appreciate that. And I also would like to compliment the police department during that peaceful demonstration march on last Wednesday. I had the opportunity to work with Captain Robinson and Lieutenant Jones. and they were very cooperative. The entire police department, and everything was a great success. And we're just proud of you, the city council. And at this time, we thank you once again for coming in. And ladies and gentlemen, this is our mayor, Mayor Walt Maddox, and we thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Have a good day.
See you tonight.
All right.
Yeah,
See you tonight. All right.